Before we proceed any further, viewers are strongly encouraged to exercise discretion. The following material is intended solely for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. What you are about to hear is the exact, unaltered federal courtroom testimony from the fifth day of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as it was documented and reported by Inner City Press. For the first time publicly, Cassie Ventura offered a vivid and deeply unsettling description of what she claims to have witnessed inside the concealed subterranean passageways allegedly existing beneath Diddy's residence. This testimony was not centered around fame, music, or even the explosive dynamics of their personal relationship. What she described reached into a territory far more disturbing and shadowed. Under the legal obligation of sworn oath, she gave a detailed account involving concealed chambers, narcotics usage, and women whose faces were hidden behind masks. While certain segments have been redacted in order to remain compliant with YouTube's content policies, the substance of her testimony remains preserved and untouched. What Cassie shared during her cross-examination on this fifth day sent shockwaves throughout the courtroom and could potentially provide the critical insight needed to dismantle and expose one of the most alarming high-profile celebrity trials in contemporary history. The secrets hidden beneath Diddy's enterprise may finally be coming to light. As proceedings commenced on day 5, the atmosphere was marked by an unusual, almost tangible tension. Reporters arrived significantly earlier, crowding into the gallery with heightened urgency. The public seating filled to capacity faster than on previous days, and even the jurors appeared notably more attentive. There was a palpable weight in the air. Everyone present understood exactly why. Cassie Ventura was set to resume the stand. Unlike the preceding sessions, which, though emotionally charged, had unfolded with a sense of legal procedure, today carried an undeniable feeling that something significant and unprecedented was about to unfold. Cassie entered the courtroom quietly, flanked by security personnel, and took her place directly across from the defense table. Although fatigue was visible in her expression, she remained composed. The presiding judge reiterated that order and decorum would be strictly maintained within the courtroom. The defense initiated questioning with an apparent shift in tactics. Rather than beginning with predictable inquiries regarding their personal relationship, they immediately pivoted, requesting that Cassie describe in detail the architecture, internal layout, and security mechanisms of Diddy's Los Angeles mansion. Initially, the line of questioning seemed oddly focused on structural specifics. But then came a question that abruptly changed the energy in the room. Ms. Ventura, have you ever been beneath the estate? Inside the tunnel? For a brief moment, silence overtook the courtroom. Audibly shocked reactions were quickly suppressed. The prosecution objected, arguing the question was speculative and lacked relevance, but the judge permitted the inquiry. Cassie exhaled and said simply, "Yes." That single word transformed the atmosphere in an instant. For months, speculation had swirled. Online discussions, anonymous tips, even cynical jokes in the media. But no one had ever confirmed the existence of such tunnels. Not until this moment, murmured the defense attorney, leaning in. "And can you explain exactly what you saw when you descended there?" Cassie started slowly. "I didn't want to go," she said. "He told me to follow. Said he had something to show me. He appeared intoxicated. I was uncertain and hesitant, but I followed him anyway." She explained that the entrance wasn't located inside the house, but rather hidden outdoors, disguised by overgrown foliage near the pool. It looked like part of the natural landscaping, a simple slope, until he moved leaves to reveal a concealed hatch. What she saw once inside, she claimed, would stay with her permanently. Descending concrete stairs, heavy steel doors, she said. The temperature dropped as they went deeper underground, and once inside, she understood instinctively. This was no panic room. This was something altogether different. Cassie remained silent for a moment, waiting for a prompt, but the courtroom already understood. They were about to hear something no one was prepared to process. Her voice didn't waver as she began to describe what she saw. That, she said, was the most unsettling part. Her calm. It was as though she had mentally rehearsed recounting this moment countless times. The tunnel opened into a long corridor, featureless walls, harsh fluorescent lighting. A mechanical humming sound filled the space. It felt nothing like a home, more like a facility or institution. She described the experience as disorienting, the path winding, with no windows or cell reception. Diddy walked slightly ahead, muttering incoherently, referencing how he would prove something. She wanted to leave but didn't. There was something in his eyes, an unspoken message not to resist. They reached a door secured with a keypad. Beyond it, she entered what she described as a large, chamber-like space. Dim red lighting, surveillance cameras installed in the corners, leather furniture, a pungent odor, a mixture of cleaning agents, perspiration, and something she couldn't identify. This room, she insisted, wasn't designed for entertainment or leisure. Its purpose felt darker, sterile, yet perverse. She gave specific details: shelves stocked with various objects, props, masks, ropes, oils, latex garments, a clothing rack with items that seemed unworn, mirrors positioned on both ceiling and floor, walls lined with soundproof padding. Nothing about the space felt imaginative. It felt like domination, like someone had constructed it for absolute control over others. The defense asked, "Did you ever see anyone else down there?" Cassie hesitated. Yes. She described two women wearing wigs and masks. One was lying silently on a couch. The other was seated beside a tripod with a camera attached. They didn't speak. They barely moved. Diddy referred to them as performers. Cassie wasn't introduced to them, asked how long she remained. In the space, she replied, "Not long." She made an excuse, said she felt sick. Upon returning upstairs, she locked the bedroom door. Hours later, Diddy confronted her. He told me, "You didn't see anything. You won't repeat anything. That place is for me, not for you." That was the only time she ever entered the tunnel, but she could never forget it. Prompted to further describe the layout, Cassie provided even more harrowing descriptions. "It wasn't just one room," she said. "There were at least 3 others I saw. One room had no lighting at all, just a bench in the center and chains fastened to the wall. The second contained a full-length mirror and an electronic panel beside the bed, its function unknown to her. The third had nothing but a single chair and a box filled with wires. That was when she told him she wanted to leave. Diddy didn't protest. He laughed, told her she wasn't ready, said it was too real for her. But what disturbed her most were the words he uttered just before unlocking the final door. "This is where I bring the ones I own." She recalled muffled noises emanating from behind that last door, like music, being distorted through a poor speaker. Then, realization struck. It wasn't music. It was voices. She couldn't say who was inside. She didn't want to know. She left the tunnels that night, trembling. The smell of that place clung to her clothes for hours. She admitted under oath that she never confided in anyone. Not her friends, not even her family. "Because I was afraid I'd disappear," she said. "That's what it felt like. Like if I said something, I'd vanish. Like those women I saw in that room." The prosecution asked why she chose to speak now. "Because it's not only about me anymore," she said. "Because he's still doing it. Because someone else might end up down there and not come back." Her words trailed off. The judge called for a brief recess, but the courtroom remained frozen. No one moved, not a soul. Because what had just been spoken was no longer just testimony. It was a warning. When court resumed, the focus shifted from the mansion's underground to what occurred in the spaces above, and it was no less disturbing. The defense tried to reinterpret Cassie's accounts as consensual encounters, focusing on the term freak-offs, a phrase that had surfaced previously in their text exchanges, sometimes used playfully or euphemistically. But now, the courtroom would hear its true meaning. "Can you explain what a freak-off was?" asked the defense. Cassie gave a subtle nod. "It was a prearranged night," she said. "It always involved sex, sometimes with multiple people, sometimes recorded. He gave out roles. There were instructions. Sometimes drugs were mandatory." The jury reviewed years' worth of messages. In one, Diddy texted, "Game starts at 10 p.m. No breaking character until 8 a.m. In another, "Bring candles, grab outfits, I want you in a wig." Cassie clarified that these events were not isolated incidents. They occurred regularly, often twice a month. Some were spontaneous, others meticulously organized, scheduled. Like business meetings, with participants arranged by assistants. She admitted she occasionally agreed, but emphasized that agreeing while drugged does not constitute consent. "I was often high," she said. "Sometimes, I didn't even remember what had happened." had happened. Often referenced in written documentation as sessions, these occurrences frequently took place within high-end hotel establishments and, on certain occasions, within his privately owned residences. Did any transpire within the tunnel? The prosecutor inquired. Cassie paused, swallowing with visible difficulty. Yes. She recounted a particular instance during which she had been instructed to wear a latex bodysuit and maintain complete silence throughout the duration of the night. I was warned that any deviation from my role would result in punishment. That evening's attendees included unfamiliar individuals. He never disclosed identities. I was simply told to trust him. One piece of evidence presented featured a disturbing message from Diddy, which read, "This time, I want control. No safe word." Cassie stated that she did not consistently feel as though she had autonomy over her own physical self. Afterward, I felt completely empty inside. I couldn't even recognize myself anymore. Eventually, she would go on to erase videos and images, not out of humiliation, but from fear. Fear that if she revealed the truth, something even more terrifying might happen. The focus of questioning then shifted toward the involvement of narcotics during these encounters. Which substances were regularly utilized during these events? Asked the prosecution. Cassie responded without hesitation. Opiates, MDMA, benzodiazepines, marijuana, but mainly unidentified pills. I didn't request them. Often, I didn't even know what I had ingested until I lost consciousness. She testified that these drugs were frequently provided either by Diddy himself or by his personnel. He'd tell me it was something to help me unwind, but it left me disoriented, lethargic, compliant. She described awakening one night on the floor of his Miami estate, drenched in sweat while the camera light remained on. I had no idea how I had ended up there. I didn't know who else had been in the room. She testified that over time, she began to suspect that recordings were being preserved. He would say things like, "You belong to me forever now." At first, I assumed it was rhetorical. Then I realized he was capturing everything to exert control. The defense contested this point, inquiring if she had ever directly seen the footage. "Just once," she said, "a short clip on his laptop. It was me, 2 men. I had no recollection of the incident." She said she pleaded for its deletion. He told me, "I keep everything for leverage." Cassie elaborated on how this exertion of power extended beyond their private encounters. If I left the house without notifying him, he'd call over 50 times. If I didn't answer, he would threaten to destroy everything I had. She also suspected he had directed individuals in his network to cease giving her drugs directly, alleging she was stealing from him. It was like he was severing every tie I had to anything outside of him. I became completely reliant on him. At one juncture, she said she attempted to seek assistance through an upscale rehabilitation center presented as a spa, but he discovered it. He showed up and told them I was just being dramatic. I checked out the next day. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence as she admitted to having made numerous solo attempts to stop taking pills. But I couldn't, not while he remained part of my life. As her testimony extended into the afternoon hours, the prosecution shifted gears. "Were you the only one?" they asked. Cassie shook her head. "No, I wasn't the sole woman, not by any stretch." She stated that during numerous freak-offs, other women had been present. Sometimes they were sex workers, sometimes strangers, sometimes recognizable figures. They'd arrive via private transport, occasionally masked, sometimes already crying. I didn't ask anything. I was too afraid. She identified a former confidant, Tiffany Red, as one of the few who witnessed what occurred behind closed doors. Tiffany was at my 29th birthday celebration. She saw certain things. She told me it wasn't okay. I didn't listen. The court reviewed a public letter Tiffany had written years later, published in Rolling Stone, denouncing Diddy's behavior. She attempted to speak out, but she was silenced. The prosecution pursued further details. "Were there staff who witnessed the events?" "Yes," Cassie replied. "His assistants helped coordinate. They were aware of when women would be arriving. They handled cleanup afterward. I don't know the extent of their awareness, but they weren't blind." She also recounted the moment she realized privacy did not exist in that environment. "I once caught one of his assistants walking in on us. He didn't react, just said, 'Sorry, boss.'" The defense argued this did not constitute evidence of criminal behavior, but Cassie's words resonated. It wasn't about intimacy, it was about domination, about submission. He needed to feel invulnerable. When asked why so many remained silent for so long, her response was immediate. Because we believe no one would ever take us seriously. Because he's Diddy. She paused. But now the truth is out. And I'm not the only one willing to speak. As the courtroom prepared for the next segment of her testimony, the prosecution addressed the most distressing section yet, the physical violence. Cassie had already revealed the psychological manipulation, the hidden tunnel, and the unsettling parties. But what followed was not metaphorical. It was visible harm. It was real injuries. It was a body left in silence. "Did Mr. Combs ever physically assault you?" the prosecutor asked. Cassie nodded, eyes downcast. "Yes, on multiple occasions." She detailed early indicators: having her wrist gripped forcefully, being shoved during disputes. He always apologized after, promised it wouldn't happen again. But it always did. The jury was shown an image depicting a cut above her eyebrow. Cassie confirmed the injury was sustained after returning late from dining alone. He thought I was cheating. I wasn't. She claimed he was intoxicated, paranoid, and volatile. I was supposed to be packing for a trip, but I was exhausted. I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up to him yelling. I don't remember much. After that, just the pain. She recalled another time being kicked in the back after he read a message from another man. "Do you remember who it was?" asked the prosecutor. "Kid Cootie," she replied. "He thought we had something romantic." She acknowledged that they had briefly dated during a break from Diddy, but he never let go. He brought it up. Constantly. Used it to justify everything. Even when she tried to leave, he retaliated. He would send threats through mutual contacts, make sure I felt monitored, make sure I knew who was in control. When asked why she didn't report him to law enforcement, she responded, "Because I didn't think anyone would believe me." He had influence. I didn't. Then she told the court something that landed heavily. One night, after a particularly awful incident, he threw me off a boat in the Caribbean, called me dead weight. I swam to the shore, and I still went back to him. A juror visibly recoiled. The judge ordered a short recess, but the gravity of her words remained. Cassie had made it unmistakably clear. This was not metaphor, not insinuation. It was real. It was brutal. It was undeniable. When proceedings resumed, the prosecution cautiously approached the final and perhaps most infamous chapter, the Intercontinental Hotel incident. This was not a rumor, not digital speculation. This was the night everything shifted. "This was the evening before your film premiere, correct?" they asked. "Yes," she answered. "I had waited so long for that moment. I was proud of the movie. I wanted to celebrate, but Diddy had other intentions." Cassie testified that he insisted on one more freak-off. He claimed it would be brief, a way to reconnect. She was hesitant. Initially, she refused, but he persisted. He said it was our tradition, that every major occasion required one of our nights. Eventually, she agreed. "I just wanted peace. I didn't want to argue before a major public event." She described being driven to the Intercontinental under the impression it would be just them. But upon arrival, others were already inside. 2 women, a male dancer, candles, recording devices. I understood immediately what it was. She was given a pill. He said it would help me relax. I was already drained. I took it. She recalled fragmented visuals, the dancer in a mask, Diddy filming with his phone, her own reflection in the mirror, slurring words she didn't remember saying. Then, nothing. I woke up hours later alone, drenched in sweat. I checked my phone. He'd sent a message saying, "You were amazing. I'm proud." I didn't understand what he meant. She never inquired. She got dressed, cleaned herself, up and walked the red carpet hours later, smiling. No one could see the bruises under the dress. The prosecution introduced a string of messages sent that day. Diddy asking if she was still glowing, if she wanted to do it again post-after party. Her response, "I never replied." That evening marked a turning point. Something inside me broke. For the first time, she imagined life without him. The next morning, she flew to New York. Alone. He didn't follow. For the first time in years, I could finally breathe. The closing portion of Cassie's 5th day on the stand was quieter, more restrained. less shocking than tunnels or assaults, yet more haunting. It revealed what happens once the spotlight fades. At first, I pretended none of it occurred. I told people we simply drifted apart. But internally, she was shattered. Therapy followed. The memories resurfaced. Faces she forgot, spaces she repressed. Then came the lawsuit, swiftly filed, quickly resolved. But to Cassie, it was not about compensation. It was about proof, a document that said, I wasn't crazy, it happened. That legal action triggered a deluge. More women emerged, anonymous testimonies, new allegations, then a federal raid. Authorities swept through Diddy's properties in search of evidence tied to trafficking and coercion. The findings remain confidential. Rumors circulated, hidden rooms, files, recordings. Reporters pursued Cassie for comment. She declined. I didn't want to be a symbol, I just wanted freedom. And now, here she was, inside a federal courtroom, recounting everything under oath. When asked what she hoped would come from all of it, her answer was firm. Accountability, not just for myself, but for every person who stepped foot in that house, for everyone who disappeared into those tunnels and never spoke again. With those final words, her testimony concluded. The courtroom sat motionless as the judge dismissed the jury for the day. Cameras were banned, but outside, the world already knew something monumental had just unfolded. Cassie Ventura hadn't, merely testified. She had ripped open the curtain on a world long protected by fame, money, and silence. And no matter what follows next, the truth is out now.